has been 2 years since I last saw my mom for good, and I have been going through a pretty complex grieving process since her death. I've just felt like it's been really difficult at times. I had a really complex relationship with her, and I thought that I would share a little bit about her, a little bit about my memories of her, and just what it was like for me having her as my mom, and what I witnessed her go through and experience, and just share what I sat down to write about her, and talk a little bit about it. Who was my mother? I suppose it depends on who you ask. I suppose that's how it will be for all of us one day. To me, perhaps my mother was a mix of all her different sides. She was far away but near. She was empty and vacant like the parking lot of the movie theater in our small town when we'd step outside after the latest movie showing, dark, quiet, and still. Only a few streetlights overhead and the dull, echoing hum of a car engine, starting and then driving away. She was things I'll never have words to adequately describe. Confusion, terror. She was different things at different times. She was home. When I feel nostalgia creeping in, she is where I run. She is summer sun beating down, sand between my toes, a few dollars to take to the concession stand, the smell of fresh grilled burgers and sweet snow cones as I stand patiently waiting, and beads of water hit the sizzling hot sidewalk, evaporating almost on contact. Beside my prune feet, a bucket full of clams after snorkeling, sloshing in my pail in the back seat on the way home. She was the homesick ache I'd feel at school, the longing to be near her. She was the smell of juicy fruit gum. She was an excellent thrifter. She was a crusher of spirits, cruel, the holder even now in death to answers I won't find. She was freedom, where I roamed barefoot with my beloved orange cat, Annie. She was one of the rare moments in life I felt genuine. She was infectious laughter. Her laugh will never leave my heart, mind, or ears. She was kindness when people needed it most, an ally for the underdog because she was one herself. She was a warm can of SpaghettiOs and meatballs split between us when I would skip school to the point of truancy. She was grave, vile mistakes and sanctifying successes. I suppose, like all mothers, she was too much to sum up. 2 years ago on this day, my mother lay in a bed, not her own, not in her own home. She lay in a dark room, lit only by the light entering through the window, her piercing blue eyes wild, filled with sadness, fear, and exhaustion, shifting from momentary lucidity back to void and hollow, her nails embedded with feces and her hair matted to her head for weeks. Deemed incapacitated, it was where she was put, against her will. It felt like a horror movie of sorts, like there wasn't any way that this was reality, but it was. I didn't know how my mom was still hanging on, 83 pounds, a breathing skeleton, skin and bones, her body and mind failing for years. I knew this would be the very last time I'd ever see or speak to my mother again. Part of me hoping for a quick end and relief to her suffering, part of me dissociated, part of me present and trying to make the most of the last moments I had before I left. I held her as close as I could, without causing her pain or feeling as though I'd snap her in half. I tried to have hope that what I was about to say was true, a feeling of reluctance and hesitation because I'm not God and cannot see his plan for our souls after this life. Pretty soon it will be okay, I promise. I asked her if she wanted to see a doctor, to get a feeding tube. She said I wouldn't make it through that, Victoria. I said, I know, Mom. I watched the late March snow falling outside her window in the room that she was in. I knew the feeling of being in homes and places and beds that weren't your own. Although she wasn't always coherent enough to care, I knew that that wasn't where as a creature of habit she hoped to be. I said my last goodbye, stopping to look at her one last time before I walked away into a new version of life, motherless, of whatever mother I had left for so long. I stood holding my breath tight in my chest and put one foot in front of the other to walk away. When I got home, heaviness loomed. I watched spring soon arrive and the trees bloom. Every day that passed, I sat, waiting for the news. 5 months after my visit and only 5 days before her 61st birthday, she passed away. I called to give consent to release her body to be cremated as she always wanted. Imagining your mother being cremated to ashes is unsettling. I imagine for her it might have been a relief to set the body and mind to destruction in the same way that it had done to her. I hope that my promise proved to be true most days when my inner child isn't aching for justice, protection, care, and love, but I know hers was too, and for that reason I hope every demon was slayed and that she was wrapped in the arms of a father who genuinely loves, and a mother who is tender and kind. I hope she found healing in her mind, body, and soul, and one day I can run to her and hear her laugh and smell juicy fruit gum, and see all that she's been able to see and know that I haven't seen or known yet. My mom had both physical and mental health issues. She was diagnosed 10 years before she passed away after a lifelong battle with chronic illness in a physical sense, and being really gaslit by medical professionals, and just never really sent out to see specialists that could assess her in a way where they could figure out what was going on for her. So she was able to finally get a couple diagnoses 10 years before she passed away, which was mitochondrial disease and an autoimmune inflammatory muscle condition called polymyositis or I think it's polymyositis. I don't know how to pronounce it, but so she was diagnosed with both of those conditions, and then she also was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. And it's hard to say what might have contributed to her mental health issues, if it was the physical health aspect of what she was dealing with, or if it was environmental and how she was raised and the dysfunction that she grew up in, or if it was substances that she became dependent on throughout her journey. And I think it's most likely a combination of all of those factors. But she suffered immensely, and I think that she would want there to be awareness of what she experienced and what she endured. I think that her physical health conditions for sure are not very easily recognized or understood, and I just thought that I would share a little bit of what I felt about my mom and going through the grieving process and what it is like for me at this point. I feel as though the first year after she passed away, I had a lot that was going on just outside of that in my own life that I was trying to, organize and, get through. And I felt like I didn't really have time to grieve in the way that I was supposed to, or really give it the attention or the focus that I think I needed to. I just couldn't. I had to, just keep going. And I feel like this past year, so the first year I felt like that, but this past year I've been able to really dig into some of it and kind of, start to work through some of it, and it is very, very complex. I experienced a lot of abuse when I was younger in my childhood, especially my early childhood. I experienced tremendous amounts of psychological abuse, not just from my mom, from, other people involved in my life at, when I was younger. And I experienced sexual abuse, mental, emotional for sure, but I think the main one was psychological abuse. And so it's been really just an interesting thing to work through and to process and to navigate and to really look at, because I think at this point in my life, at the age that I'm at and the place that I'm at, and walking through my life so far up to this point, carrying around an immense amount of trauma, I for a long time was very dissociated and would just sweep things under a rug without realizing it. Or I would look at, something and try to work through it, but I wouldn't really, I guess, peel back the layers of things too much, and I would just feel like I was healed or feel like I made progress at certain points and that I was, done with that and moved on and moved through it. But I don't think that healing always, works like that or looks like that. And I think the hardest part, and I personally think the most frustrating part, is you need to make sure that you have a really good support system in your life and around you, emotionally, and mentally, and to be able to find people that are going to be empathetic and understanding. And I find that can be challenging because a lot of people will tend to not be able to understand, not be able to empathize, whether that's because it's something that they can't relate to, or it's because they just lack empathy in general and are not able to provide that. But often when you're surrounded by people like that, you will often feel like you are rushed, like you have to hurry up and get through the process because it makes other people uncomfortable to see you in it and to be around you and to feel it. And maybe they have things that they haven't worked through or haven't been given the tools to really understand how to sit with difficult emotions in other people. And I know I personally have been like that, quite often throughout my life. So I know that it can be a lot, but it is important. I think what I've learned overall throughout, my journey is that one of the best things that you can do is to not rush yourself, not try to just get through it just for the sake of, moving on or being happy or being positive, and to really feel what you're feeling and to understand it and to kind of dig into it and figure out, why. And I think that therapy is really great and it can be helpful in teaching you certain coping mechanisms like, breathing work and grounding exercises and meditation and different ways of communicating and, working through certain aspects of things. But one of the things that I have found really frustrating is that therapy doesn't always teach you how to fix certain things. They can give you tools and exercises to implement to kind of regulate your nervous system and make it a little bit easier, as you're going through certain things. But it doesn't always give you like a specific way to fix, things that I think a lot of people go to therapy to fix. And so for me, it has just been something that I am going through and navigating to the best of my ability, and trying to find ways to ease stress in my life and to be able to not be as numb and dissociated from, I think, the years of not being able to process, a lot of things that I needed to. So I just thought that I would share a little bit of my journey with this aspect of my life and talk about it a little bit and process my own thoughts, and then have this to look back on, I guess, and then maybe it can help somebody else who might have potentially experienced similar things, or I just thought that I would share some memories of my mom.